Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first Innis Reports of 11th edition. I am here to talk about my run at the Edinburgh GT with Dark Angels. This was a couple of weeks ago now at time of recording. It has been a very busy season with WTC, so finding the time to sit down and record for an hour has been a little challenging, but we are here, we're live, we're going to talk about it. It's a balanced patch ago, so it's not as relevant, but I hope that you guys will still have a bunch to learn about the lessons and the thought processes, especially about specifically playing priority assets and my thoughts on playing tournaments this edition. I think that's kind of the main appeal. Means I'll probably be a little skimpier on details on the actual games themselves. I'll go through them, but we're probably not going to fine tooth comb it because the list as it exists, as it was played, doesn't exist anymore. So I think that there is always a component of wanting to just make sure we don't go too deep in the weeds. We'll talk a little bit about Dark Angels, why I took the army I did, what the goals were, and how the 7 games went, and what we learned from it. And that's kind of the gist. If you like what you see today, I make these all the time. They're on a playlist on the YouTube channel. If you want to go and find that, please do. But yeah, keep an eye out for many more of these. Hopefully, we'll be having one for War Masters, maybe WTC as well, depending how that goes, and many more to come. All right, let's start with the first bit. What did I play for this event? So I played Inner Circle Task Force plus Librarius Conclave Dark Angels. This is a detachment combination that gives you quite a bunch of stuff, actually. Inner Circle Task Force gives you the ability to pick a bunch of objectives and get +1 to wound with your Deathwing infantry against anything that's on them. And then also some really, really good stratagems, Armoric Attempt, a -1 to wound, a reroll wound stratagem, and some other fun gimmicks like that. 6-inch Deep Strike, which comes up occasionally in the scoring late game. And then Librarius Conclave, obviously everybody knows it, everybody loves it. Gives you those pick your abilities, like -1 to strength for incoming range attacks, +2 to move, for your ones that hit and wound being the big ones for this army specifically. It's playing priority assets. Now, I personally love priority assets as a play pattern. Very much for me, priority assets leads into the I make you come to me because if you don't, I will score my points. That's the sort of baseline strategy that we're looking at here is that this army is not super fast. It's not the most explosive thing in the world until you get to it. But by using the power of hidden as a mechanic and the priority assets scoring plan, which is very much I'm going to sit in my half of the board on my 3 objectives and I'm going to hit buttons. I'm going to do actions consistently. I will score lots and lots of points. And we did that pretty successfully. I will say that over the entire event, I did not drop a point to primary. I did drop a couple points on secondaries, but primary was never particularly an issue for this army. It was very, very easy to just score your 100 points while applying enough pressure to your opponent to diminish their score at least a little bit. In basically all of my games, I was going for a game plan of I have 2 good cracks at your side objective, and if I can make one of them stick, I will probably win the game. And if I can make one of them stick and it goes through and I don't need the second wave, I will probably smash you, is kind of the play pattern that we were playing towards. It's, you have 2 good cracks at pushing your opponent's expansion, 2 good shots. Usually that was like the Librarian plus Inner Companion squad would stage up and go for it, or the Terminator squad would Rapid Ingress and go for it, and then the second Deathwing Knight squad would like follow up, or the Stern Guard would walk out, or the Azrael squad would walk out and have a go at taking your expansion off you. And if it succeeded, your score would get held down really significantly. And if it didn't succeed, then it would have got held down enough that I should win. It was kind of the idea, while also having very good control of the middle to make sure that I was accelerating my score ahead of yours. Now, in aid of doing that, here's the unit combinations. We have Azrael with a Lieutenant and 10 Intercessors. I was a stellar fan of this unit. This army, for me, the most acceptable thing you have as priority assets is getting jammed at. If you get jammed at and you can't handle that pressure, that's how you lose games. If you can't get access to your middle objective, if you can't get access to your expansion objective, and you can't keep hitting the button and keep pressing the point scoring, that's where the failure state comes in for this army. So what you try to do is you try to build in as many fail safes to make that as challenging as possible. And as we go through the units, we'll kind of talk about how each of those units engaged with that. So this unit, Azrael plus Lieutenant plus 10 intercessors, is 22 OC. It's sustained, it's lethal, it fallback shoots and charges because of the Lieutenant. It has a 4 invulnerable save always on because of Azrael. It's got access to the Deathwing -1 to wound stratagem, and it's got access to Armoric Contempt, all of which are pretty good defensive multiplication buffs. This was before the change to intercessors where they didn't get their 40 shots on Overwatch. Now they can only use that ability in the shooting phase. So at the time, this was a very respectable Overwatch threat with 40 shots with sustained lethal, or closer to 50 between the grenade launchers and the Lieutenant and Azrael. And it punched up pretty hard in combat. Getting +1 to wound meant that you got to pretend you were Ultramarines a lot of the time. Having a reroll wound stratagem in combat meant that this unit's melee damage was actually quite significant. It was able to punch up quite well. and it was able to threaten heroics consistently while also generating an additional CP. So it was able to, heroic, fall back forward, go and shoot and charge the next thing, and then just keep doing that repetitively off the table while also threatening sticky objective and just being really, really durable. This unit was genuinely my favorite part of the list and probably the most interesting part of the army as a whole. And I found this unit was really useful in basically all of my games. Then we had a Librarian with 6 Inner Circle Companions. This was before the change where they got changed to be stealth instead of -1 to hit. So this unit was very durable. It's a 13 OC unit to hold your expansion objective with a 4 vulnerable save and a -1 or 2 to hit, depending on where you're hitting them. Yeah, just a really, really good blender unit. Very good into orcs if I'd played against those. Just a lot of attacks and very, very durable. Yeah, this unit came in very clutch for just being like either the thing that held my expansion objective, if that was the thing I was worried about, or the thing that pushed my opponents, if that was the thing I was worried about, because its OC and stickiness durability meant that it could often charge in and survive and then still do something. We had Librarian with 10 Stronger with Fusillade. This was before again the Fusillade nerf, where it got changed to not work the way it does. It used to be, obviously it's now lethal hits. It was at the time anti-vehicle monster 5-up. This was my I don't want to see that thing anymore, go away button. And it, did that. It was very, very good at just wailing on sort of any given target and just like doming it from orbit. Yeah, this unit was capable of killing Defilers. It was capable of killing Great and Clean ones. It still hurt into anything infantry shaped. It's still Stern Guard with +1 to wound because they're Deathwing keyword. Yeah. Then we had 2 Deathwing Knight squads, one with Celerity, which gives advance on charge and fall back in charge if you're in Biomancy, which is the +2 movement ability. And then one which was with the Temporal Corridor, which at the time allowed you to teleport out of combat. This unit was very, very instrumental for allowing me to deploy aggressively, so that if I did get rushed, I had my Temporal Corridor squad on the table ready to do something or to stage aggressively so that I could pressure you off of me. But if you then chose to not run at me, I had a unit that could go back into reserve and then gave me a rapid ingress threat that could then like stay through the mid game. But I found that in a lot of my testing games against things like Vanguard, Tyranids, and Orcs, if I didn't have the second Deathwing Knight squad on the table, I could struggle to punch my way out of a wet paper bag quickly enough to run my score up. I was still often tabling my opponents in those games, but it was taking me so long to stop them scoring that I was often losing 100 to 80, 100 to 70, and losing quite badly. But while having a advantage position, which then put me in a position of being like, well, okay, I am clearly needed to readdress the way that the fundamental point scoring was happening in that army. Because if you can't, if you can kill your opponent but you can't score points, you need to do something else about it. And I still really like that unit as a turn 1 threat for being able to pick up and drop with the new. Obviously not being able to teleport out of combat at the time. This meant that I had 3 units that could fall back and act between Temporal Corridor, Celerity, and the Lieutenant. But certainly, I think if I was to play this again with the similar changes, like tweaking out the 45 points, Temporal Corridor would probably move to the Stern Guard to just give me a decent turn 1 threat, or I would look at including that on a Terminator Librarian squad for the similar ideas. Then we have 2 land speeders, 2 scouts. I really like my chaff pieces in this army to be either able to go back in reserve or movement 12 or higher, or to fire and fade. And scouts and land speeders do both those things. They scout, they move 6, they go back in reserve, they fire and fade, they move 14. Just really good for keeping that repetitive tool up. One of the things I'm always looking for in priority assets, how do I not give my opponent a kill, especially against Purge of the Foe, which was very popular at the time. This was before Purge got changed to be much less accessible in list construction. So I definitely felt I need to be a lot more considered about how I engaged with giving Purge the Foe its kill 1. And in a few of my games against Purge the Foe, they struggled to get their kill 1 in the first place against me, which was really nice. Then Lieutenant with Combi Weapon and an Invader ATV just as 2 other push the button action units. Overall, I was really, really happy with the construction of this list. It definitely has a severe lack of anything long range, but again, it's using hidden and priority assets to make its opponent come to it, and that gives you some real agency for winning the game without it having to be particularly sweaty, which I really like. Okay. Game 1, I played against Iain and his Fellhammer Cabal of Chaos. This was a pretty chill game on the whole. I think it was Ian's second tournament, so definitely one of those ones that, when you play against somebody who's at their earlier events, I always feel a little bad for it because I'm like, well, I'm a very experienced tournament player and you're not. This is always going to be a little bit challenging. So we definitely did a bit of talking through some of his options, things like that. Iain very basically had a Defiler with Abaddon. He had 10-man Legionnaire squad with Sorcerer doing the same -2 to hit thing that the Inner Circles were doing. He had 2 Cultist squads, and then he had a Master of the Maelstrom unit with Chosen and a Predator and 2x5 Possessed. And we deployed pretty standardly here. I would consider this to be a fairly standard deployment on my end. We have Inner Circle Companions ready to walk onto this objective. We have a Scout Squad here. We have a Scout Squad here ready to cover the quarters. We have a Lieutenant here to do the action. There's also an ATV here, which can walk onto this and do the action. Then we have our Intercessors ready to go to the middle We have our advance and charge Deathwing Knights at the bottom. We have our teleport Deathwing Knights ready to cover our expansion objective. And then the Sternguard are here covering the long shooting angle. If my opponent wants to walk at me and come and stand on this objective or this objective, the Sternguard are in a position to respond. And that was that's the basic premise. And then we screen out our backfield with basically nothing. Iain didn't have anything in reserve this game, so I felt pretty comfortable with sticking and forgetting with the two Deathwing Knight with the two guys here. So that's the intercessors ready to sticky that and move on. Iain takes first turn. He pushes his possessed onto this objective. They charge the scouts. I armor contempt. They don't kill them. And then he kind of stages up into the middle. I walk up, tap the middle, start pushing my button, kill his stuff, and wait. I don't really have to do anything. I'm in the passive on our priority assets. If he gets hold an objective at the end of his turn, he gets 4 points, and then he gets 5 points for hold 3. He gets 9 a turn, and then I will get 4 for doing the action, 4 for holding 3, and 4 for holding 1. So I'll get 12 points a turn to his 9 if we just stand stationary. So all I really need to do is I will score 48 points on primary without really having to work for it. And if I can deny him this objective one time, which I can just start creeping up to do, I will probably win the game. And yeah, that was basically the premise. Iain chose to develop his Defiler to here. I walked the Sternguard onto this brick and then shot it to death with Fusillade, making sure to stay outside of 15. I think I shot it down to like 5 wounds, and then the Intercessor squad had walked onto this plate and shot it with +1 to wound because he was touching the objective. And then my Deathwing Knight squad charged his expansion objective, killed the unit that was on it, got charged, held down, and we just kind of eventually repetitively grounded the game. He just never really had the agency to kill my backfield or my front field. The Deathwing Knights, I don't think, took enough damage this game to feel consistent. Yeah, I was pretty consistently getting, I got like 4, 14, 12, 14, 14 on primary, which is, for those doing the math at home, 18, 30, 58 primary out of a potential 45, and I was able to hold Iain down to just getting his hold ones, basically. And yeah, my cards were generally fairly trivial. One of the nice things about having a unit like Azrael in your army is you basically never need to discard a card, which is obviously really, really nice because you just always have that ability that on like the later turns that you can just, oh, I've scored 3 of them, right? Like if you're holding, you hold like 2 cards on the turn, then you go to 4 cards in hand, you score 1 of them, you go to 3 cards in hand, but you score 5 points. Then the next turn you can score like 3, 3, 2 of the remaining and get 15, 15, 10. And that gets you your max without having to ever discard a card because there's just no pressure on me to ever do that. So I'm able to be quite greedy with like holding no prisoners for 4 turns because I just don't think I get it for like 1 point or for 2 points, then 2 points. I'm like, well, I can do better, and I'm not under any duress because I've scored at least one of my cards. So I was comfortable taking it for a 4 on the last turn, and we're just able to repetitively hold cards throughout the end game. So that felt pretty good. I wasn't under like a ton of pressure to do anything there, which was nice. Game 2, I played against Aaron Knight, who's one of the Team Scotland guys and also one of the Aberdeen guys. One of the things I will say was really nice about this tournament was playing in Scotland. It was just awesome. I got to play against a bunch of Scottish people that I know, that I didn't know, and as a reasonably prominent member of the Scottish community, it was just awesome to get to play a 200 and odd player event on home turf. Just really, really, really enjoyable. Playing the first Super Major of the edition in Scotland. It's really, really awesome for me, and I was really, really happy to be able to engage with that. So Aaron is playing pretty standard Hallowed Martyrs. He has like the Volbrick, he has a Sacrosanct squad, he has a couple of Immolators full of things. And we're both playing priority assets. So we're both doing actions on these objectives. We're getting 3 points on our own relative expansions, and then 5 on our opponent's expansion, and 5 on the center. And then we have a hold 1 condition for kind of standard. So generally, the way that this game plays is that if you can both do the action on your expansion objective every turn, you'll both get 3 points a turn, which will get you to 15 from that. You'll be able to do the action on the middle. You'll probably hold your expansion 4 times for 16 points, gets you to 31. Then if you do the action on the middle 3 times, that gets you to 45, because that gets you the full 45. If you can do it more than that, if you can do the action in the middle more repetitively, you'll get to a much higher point score very quickly. And yeah, you can kind of see that on a few of these turns that I was able to do middle plus my expansion, middle plus my expansion plus hold, middle plus my expansion plus hold, just hold. I took the turn off it, and then middle plus expansion plus my hold got me a pretty comfortable 48 on primary while taking a turn off of doing actions. Aaron was able to go middle plus expansion objective, but my inner circle companion squad deployed down here on this board because I didn't feel like he had a ton of pressure on my expansion objective, and they were able to walk into here and then walk out to 8 inches and charge his expansion. And with OC13, I was able to deny it for 2 turns. And then, he gets his expansion objective again, and then his expansion, but he runs out of ability to do the actions. So how did this game actually play out? Was Aaron went first this game. He staged up a little bit. I give him very little to shoot. Everything in my army is basically hidden. He developed his 1 unit into here, and I basically just did the bare minimum. I poked my land speeders to here and to here. I shot this canoness to death and then fire invaded back to relative safety and waited. I was under very little duress. I'd staged my scout squad. He'd only managed to get like one mortar fire into this objective, so I walked my scouts out, tapped the objective, denied him the primary, staged my inner circle companions to here, and then he took that turn. He pushed into me a little aggressively. He killed these scouts, and he killed them in shooting, I believe. And then I advanced my guys. I rapid ingressed my Deathwing Knights down here, charged his Rhino. I was able to pop the Rhino in shooting between the Librarian shooting and the Librarian shooting and the land speeder and the ATV, which had pushed around the side here. And then his Sacrosanct fell out. I charged them with the Deathwing Knights. I think I killed 7 or 8 of them. He walked Vol out in order to respond to that, and then the Deathwing Knight squad, the Deathwing Sternguard squad walked onto the objective, didn't get Overwatch because it was stood and hidden, and shot Vol to death. And then we scrapped over the middle for a couple turns, but he had no pressure on my expansion objective. I'd managed to hold him off him a couple times, and I was just better at doing secondaries than he was because I was in control of the game and had been the one to activate into him. And also, Deathwing Knights are just really hard to kill. One of the things I found really nice in this game was the squad of Deathwing Knights that he connected into was the Temporal Corridor unit, obviously. And because that unit, when it dies, I didn't lose the Librarian, I was able to have that Librarian teleporting around throughout the whole mid game, which was really nice. Just he's taking battleship tests, but he doesn't always fail them, and he just kept scoring cards, which was really nice. And this is kind of like you can see like a development into the mid game. I've got my Deathwing Knights have charged the seconds up here, my speeders down here. His Vol squad is about to walk up this way a little bit, shoot these guys, charge these guys, and he kills most of both squads. But he basically at this point has no way to interact with the Azrael Brick, who would just take complete control of the middle of the rest of the game. All of my stuff comes down here. The Sacrosanct, the Insidiant unit comes out here, kills this Inner Circle Companion squad. But all of my shooting down here, my land speeder, my scouts, etc., come in, do enough chip damage to them that it's now like reasonably comfortable. They charge the land speeder, don't kill it, and then I'm able to kill the rest of it and then just develop through. One of the things that I did find with this army was that basically my opponent's like most important unit, my opponent's linchpin unit, would never die. I just wouldn't ever really kill it. Because I was able to ignore it quite successfully. So in this game, Aaron had the Triumph, and I don't think I allocated an attack to the Triumph the whole game. And you'll kind of see that kind of show up consistently through the whole thing. The lack of reach does mean that if your opponent has a linchpin piece that they do leave back, you will probably not kill it, but it won't stop you from scoring all of your points. Game 3, I don't know what's going on with these pictures. My apologies. Let me see if I can get these to work a little better. You guys are going to have to bear with me for a second. Okay, it's showing up there, but it's not showing up there. My firmest apologies to everybody for this. Okay, I got the picture, but not the score sheet. Now let's try and get the score sheet. Sorry, guys, you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm definitely also not going to edit this out, so. Okay, I think I got it. Oh, you guys get to see the behind the scenes on Canva. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So in this game, I was playing against Jack Harrison and his mod card. This was before the change from mod card got moved to being priority assets. And in this game, I was playing against 9 piranhas, which I'm not going to lie is a little stressful. That is a lot of piranhas to go second against. And I did go second this game. So we've deployed very aggressively, but I'm going to call this reasonably considered. Everything was pre-measured so that this Storm Surge couldn't hit me. Jack had deployed the Storm Surge quite defensively because I outdropped him, and he didn't want my Sternguard unit to be able to like walk out and shoot it. Obviously, it does advance the shoot, and it's capable of doing a lot of damage to the Storm Surge between that and 2 land speeders. So he deployed it quite defensively. He has a couple of things off the table, and then everything else is kind of on the board. He has 1 Riptide off the table with Burst Cannon, and then everything else. He also doesn't have Strike Swiftly in this list, notably. So I was able to pre-measure this a lot more because he's playing 9 Piranhas, and Twin Lance he didn't feel the need to have more Scout, which I think is honestly probably reasonable. I'm going to pause this for 2 seconds because I just noticed that my next batch of things doesn't have the pictures as well, and I'm going to go and fix that. Okay, that definitely wasn't an incredibly odd 5 minutes where I refilled in a bunch of pictures that I'd added already, but we move on. Okay, so what was going on? We were playing our game against Jack Harrison, and I'm going to change this back to the presenter view version because otherwise, frankly, it's just going to be a pain in the ass. There we go. We are back to something resembling normalcy, and you guys are just going to have to accept the slight scuffness. Um, so yeah, so I ended up starting this game in telekinesis, which is the -1 strength, with the idea just being that like, okay, it's going to keep myself alive against the Pathfinder, it's going to keep myself alive against the Twin Lance, and a bunch of that. And my basic thought process here was that he's going to shove all of these piranhas at me, which he does. He puts the piranhas basically in a line like here around me. The combat lieutenant's in this corner, who's body blocking from getting too much in here. The scouts are body blocking from coming straight line, so he's not going to be able to get to the stern guard. This Deathwing Knight squad is probably not taking a ton of damage, and I'm just kind of accepting that this inner circle squad and this Deathwing Knight squad is going to get wailed on, and I'm just hoping that I don't just get exploded. And that ends up being mostly true. This scout squad goes down to one guy. This scout squad goes down to one guy because like only the ghost kill the stealth just really allocate attacks into it. It's just a little bit awkward. He doesn't get a ton of shooting into it. And then he kills 3 inner circle companions and 5 of the Deathwing Knights and drops the librarian to 2 wounds, which is tough, or 1 wound, something like that. Not a health left. But honestly, it's about as much damage as I was expecting. He advanced his twin lance in order to get them able to shoot the Deathwing Knights with close range because they're a bit short range. And then his stealth suit didn't kill his stealth suits and like one piranha didn't kill these scouts, so he didn't get sustained hits. I did roll pretty poorly on my saves. I think across like all the secrets and things like that, I got handed like 15 4 invulnerable saves, and I think I failed like 11 of them, which it happens. And he rolled reasonably well on damage, so I lost like 1 or 2 more knights than I was expecting. I was expecting to have like the sergeant and 1 left. But on my return, on my clapback, I was able to kill all 3 piranhas from that squad, all 3 piranhas from this squad, and 2 of the piranhas from this squad, plus tag this stealth suit squad, kill the Pathfinders that he pushed to the middle, and kill 1 of Twin Lance and drop the other one down to like 6 wounds. Which was like, pretty decent. Also, he had left 1 scout on 1 wound and 1 librarian on 1 wound, and there was like 3 scouts left in this squad that were in combat and like inside this corner. So I stood them next to 6 piranhas, and 1 of them exploded and killed both my 1 wound models, which meant that he didn't get a kill 1 in his turn. I was able to get a pretty easy 5 on no prisoners. I had started my beacon, which was on a big squad of Deathwing Knights, and I just kind of started my next one orange up the board. I was able to push the button on the middle objective with, I want to say nothing. I want to say I didn't do the action this turn. And then in his turn, he hit back with what he had. He brought in his Riptide, he brought out the Storm Surge, and he killed like half of Azrael's squad and a couple of Deathwing Knights from the other squad, but not the full unit, and chipped some other stuff. But he never finished off any units, so again, no kill 1. And then my Sternguard squad was able to walk down onto this angle, killed his Riptide that came in here from full with like the 6 guys that could see, and the Inner Circle Companion squad had the Intercessor squad had 6-inch heroic into here and was able to kill the unit that he put on the middle objective. And then I just kind of started walking into this objective. At some point, my single advanced and charging Deathwing Knight went onto the objective, charged his Storm Surge, and just held it in place where it wasn't within 18-inch hidden of everything. And I just kept doing my action. And I just got my action on the middle objective pretty comfortably and was able to hold him in place. Yeah, this is kind of like the end state at the end of his turn too. You can see he's kind of like he's pushed his Ghost Keel up. He's got his Shadow Sun. He's got his 1 Twin Lance remaining. I've still got like some Inner Circle Companions. They take damage. They get shot by the Ghost Keel and Twin Lance. Go down to just the Librarian. The Azure squad is going to heroic into this Piranha. The Deathwing Knight squad is here, and the Sternguard are going to walk down this way with +2 move, pick this guy up, and then the speeches are going to continue to hold my backfield until he comes in with his Farsight unit, at which point they're going to go forward. And I'm just able to march forward, and I'm able to use the -1 to wounds to stop the Storm Surge from doing too much damage to whatever it targets. And I'm able to kill this guy with rear wounds, kill this guy in shooting, and then he ends up at the end of his turn. I think he starts his turn 2 with like exactly this unit and the unit in reserve and like Shadow Sun left. I think that might be it on his turn 3, and I'm able to just kind of table him from there, with the exception of the Storm Surge, which never meaningfully takes damage. Just kind of doing that same thing again. If it doesn't come forward and doesn't stop me scoring points, I don't care. I'm pushing the button in the middle with an ETV or a Scout Squad or whatever. Right, just every turn, just push the button, get your points, max your primary. And as long as I'm denying him kills and he's having a tough time getting secondaries, which again, his secondaries are challenging into me, right? I don't give up a lot of kills, right? He gets his turn 1 engage and secure no man's land. Turn 2, he gets outflank, then he draws behind enemy lines, tempting target. Tempting target becomes this objective, which he's got nothing near. He's never able to get that. He gets his, he draws plunder. He's not on my side of the board. He gets forward position. He's not on my side of the board. He gets assassination. Okay, he gets that. He gets his defend. That's fine. But like that was the best he was ever getting, right? The push just didn't work into the Deathwing Knights, and that's kind of what I'm talking about with the list is built to repel getting rushed as best it can. Okay. Next up, we have our game 4, which was into Bryce. I will shout out Bryce was the guy that does ListForge. So if you are looking for a list builder app or a reference app and stuff like that, and you're sick of Wahapedia or 39K not having all the details you want, give ListForge a try. It was really nice to meet him. He was a friend of a friend. It turns out actually, one of my locals, Mike, is good friends with him and was loaning him a Custodes army, which was really awesome. It was great to meet him, and massive shout out to Bryce for just being super chill and a great guy to play against. I think he went 4-1 as well, which is awesome. He flew in from overseas just for this event because he was in the country for work, but he flew up to Scotland for the event specifically, which I thought was super awesome. So yeah, it was great to meet him. This was Lines of the Emperor plus Might of the Mortoi, back when that could still be Purge the Foe. This was like 2 Alaric squads and a Warden squad and a Caladius and a Telemon and all that kind of stuff. And the basic premise of this one is that I can be pretty disrespectful of this in shooting because it doesn't really do any shooting and it's not that fast. So as long as I keep up a respectable screen in front of it or with like the scouts and stuff like that, it's really challenging for this army to connect into me super hard. And again, I just don't have any units for it to really kill. So my turn one, I'm pretty disrespectful. I push my advanced and charging Deathwing Night Squad onto the middle objective. I put Adriel and the Combat Lieutenant on, do the action, stack this up to +1, and then I poke and prod forward a little bit. I don't really run for the sisters or anything like that. I just put the Land Speeder in front, and I put my Inner Circle Companion Squad here with like the air of I'm going to keep a wall in front of you. I think there's also a Scout Squad in the corner here, and then my other Scout Squad is here, just screening my backfield so he can't come in on top of me. His turn one, he walks out the Draxus unit and puts some shooting into the Deathwing Knights. I think he kills almost a guy, but doesn't kill a guy because the anti-psyker 4-up is a nightmare on that unit. So Draxus just doesn't do enough damage. And then I advance and charge forward. I charge the guard squad. I'm able to kill it. He rapids ingresses in his Alaric squad and double ones his heroic. He rolls Snake Eyes and fails it, and that was tough. That was definitely tough for Bryce. He definitely didn't need that to happen. Yeah, a sad face. And then on the other side of the board, I like poke up and just start taking some chip shots. He stages Caladius back behind here, but I like chip down a couple of the sisters, so we start taking battleship tests, and the Sternguard brick just kind of waits for something to come forward. Bryce rolls a 6-inch advance on his Warden squad and decides to go for my Deathwing Knights or for my Inner Treasure squad that's on the middle here. And I rapid ingress the Deathwing Knights and Temporal Corridor squad that I picked up. It rapid ingresses in front of it, and I go around the side of it kind of like this, so that when he wants to charge into me, he can only really get like 2 guys into the Azrael squad, which just doesn't do enough damage. He has to pop his Feel No Pain in his turn. I hit back because the Deathwing Knight squad is fight firsted, and I'm able to kill most of the squad in shooting. I then pick it up out of combat again and drop, or I think I just fall it back and I shoot it with the Stern Guard and it goes down. And over here, the Alaris squad charges my Deathwing Knights. It's an Alaris, I think it's just 3 and a captain with it, Monomortis. I think he kills me down to 3 guys and then dies back. Because I used the wound reroll. He was on the objective. I'm winning on forceful rerolls, and I just get a couple sustained hits and a couple dev wounds, and I'm able to drop the Aller squad on his own objective. His Telemon then has to spend a couple turns clearing that out, and his Caladius just kind of sits over here for the rest of the game, trying to kill land speeders and failing. I'm able to, at the end of the game, I hit a 9-inch charge with my scout squad into his Caladius, and I'm able to flip the objective to get my 100. Otherwise, I would have only scored I think I scored exactly 45 secondary or 46 secondaries, which got me the 100, which obviously feels good. I was going into round 5 with 400 points. Definitely a nice place to be. And again, that just like I never have to discard with Azrael coming through, right? Like Beacon, I'm able to hold for the entire game because I just put it on my Temporal Corridor Deathwing Knight squad. Like eventually they'll get to your territory. I'm able to hold Tempting Target for 3 turns with no downside, and I'm able to just like kind of run through my scoring. And you can kind of see a lot of that, like these deep running secondaries which hold on for a couple turns. And then again, Bryce just, do you want to run a Deathwing Knights or Center Ground? You don't have any units. Display of Might, I have a bunch of units in the middle. Cleanse, there's only so much you can do with actions, right? He gets this 1, but what does he want to put a Warden squad into this middle objective? That's challenging, right? Whereas I've just got a decent grab bag of chaff, even though I'm screening with a scout squad and an ATV and using the land speeders forward. I'm still just like, this inner companion squad's not charging this turn, it'll just cleanse. One other notable thing here that was really annoying: the librarians in this army are real damage. It feels odd, but because I so often was sitting in rear ones to hit and wound, at one point he rapid ingressed in like a guard squad here, and the Terminator librarian here could see, and the librarian from the Inner Circle Companion squad here could see, and they both just shot. And I think I killed 2.5 guard just in shooting. And then when the guard squad charged in, it now didn't OC my Inner Circle Companion squad because it was only 9 OC to my 13 or 12 OC to my 13, so it didn't get full wound rolls and it didn't kill the whole unit, which again meant that he left like the librarian, but that's enough that the unit doesn't give a kill one over, right? It's just very, very frustrating. I love this kind of super thick army for just denying your opponent their secondaries while you just run the score up on yours. Okay, game 5. I played against one of my Team Scotland boys in Graeme Meiklejohn, who's a fantastic little player. He's been getting much better. He's one of our coaches for WTC this year, but I'm looking forward to seeing what run he makes. And this was very much one of those cases again of he had to deploy his defilers reasonably respectfully, and the angles on this particular board, like a defiler doesn't really fit into this spot. It doesn't really fit into this spot. It can land here, but it's going to get shot. And I'm just deployed so that like if he goes maximum distance forward, he can get shots on me with one defiler, but not both. And that's kind of it. We're kind of doing the same thing again here of I feel pretty good about my expansion objective being reasonably secure. So my inner companion squads are deployed to pressure his because I'm happy to like go in to try to just like bog down these guys for at least a turn. The Scarabcle Terminator, she's playing Hexbots as taken hold. So our primary gain is I'm trying to hold 3 objectives. He's trying to hold more objectives. I'll get passive scoring advantage as long as I can hit the button. So I put a scout squad in here and I lined them up such a way that if he wanted to get line of sight on me, his secateurs would be in a place that his defiler couldn't get to. So then when his secateurs walk to here, in order to see my defiler, I'm able to line up on this guy on this angle and stand my stern guard here behind this plate where they can shoot the secateur without the defiler being able to shoot them back. Because the defiler, the base physically can't land in this space or in this space. So he has to just accept getting shot if he wants to kill my scouts, which he does go for. And then I line up on the secateur and I kill most of them with my terminators or with my stern guard. Well, just like playing them in the side. And you'll notice that in a lot of my games that my stern guard never really leave my deployment zone. They were very much kind of just like playing this backfield angle, which is why they could definitely be other things. Like you could play this as Hellblasters or something like that if you're still looking to play this army after the changes. I then poke like a guy onto the middle objective. I think I put a scout squad onto it and just ask him how he wants to deal with it. I get my action. I do my action with like my lone up lieutenant here, and I stage into this corner where it's like reasonably challenging for him to get shots on me. Again, his defiler can't really get to the board edge here, so the angle to shoot me doesn't exist. And then a couple of guys are like on the terrain here just for hidden purposes, and to be as far forward with my range move to get to here. And then I pick up my Deathwing Knights ready to rapid them next turn to apply some pressure to him. Graeme ends up putting like a spawn squad onto this objective, which is kind of annoying. I don't have a good way to interact with that. This is quite a far objective for me to get to. But again, I don't actually really have to, right? Graeme is getting hold more, but not hold one. But I am able to push onto him in the next turn. He walks up a sector squad to kill my scouts. And he's able to do so. So I go down both my scout squads pretty quickly because the other one died to this sector squad. But then he blocks me out with like a squad of Zanger Enlightened. I'm able to walk my inner companion squad up here, and I put some chip shooting into these guys, and I throw the charger to the secateur, but I roll high enough to go to the Terminators. I end up killing like 3 or 4 of them, and I think the secateur also heroic into me, and I killed the secateur in combat because I used the wound reroll strategy because this was a Vard objective. I'm able to kill the secateur and like 3 Terminators. I will never again interact with that Terminator squad, but it will sit on this side of the board for the entire game. He brings in a secateur squad behind me, and then walks it forward and shoots this guy to death, then walks into my home objective, which was sticky for a turn. And I push up this side. My Death Knight squad rapid ingress is here, walks forward, charges his Terminator, and then walks forward and charges his home objective. And I'm able to flip that off him. My other Death Knight squad goes onto the middle objective and kills the spawn squad, but makes his defilers come within 12 of me. So he walks one to here and one to here. And then I'm able to kill this one because it walked onto the objective. My Stern Guard brick walks up onto this. My inner circle squad walks forward from behind this building, and I'm able to pick up this defiler, and then his one defiler and his Terminator squad, which is now down here on the side of the train. So his Terminator squad ends up. Let's see if I've got a better picture of this. No. His Terminator squad ends up. I'm just jumping around all over the place. Yeah, his Terminator squad ends up being very much like in this area where it can't really meaningfully impact the game. It's holding this objective, but that's kind of all it's doing. And then my Deathwing Knight squad is on his home objective. My inner circle companion squad is very dead at this point. But my Stern Guard are here and my Astro Brick is here. And I still have like the Librarian from my Deathwing Knight squad and a Speeder. And I just have too much stuff for one defiler to meaningfully split fire and kill all of it, but through threat of AOC, -1 to wound, and him having no real spells left. And I'm able to just kind of grind through the game. Now you will see one thing in here that is the kind of the one malice of getting 100 points. Is I took a turn of just being like, I'm going to take a 2 on no prisoners because, or sorry, he took a 2 on no prisoners. I think there was a turn in here where I took like 2-point display of might, then 3-point behind enemy lines, 4-point no prisoners, and like back-to-back turns. And that's the reason I didn't get 100 here. Is I was, this is one of those games where Graeme is a good enough player and I have enough respect for him and his army's damage output that I was willing to win the game, then worry about scoring 100 points later. That's definitely a thing that you want to make sure you're not getting too greedy for, right? Like 100 points is a cool goal to work towards, but you should not let it be at the expense of actually winning the game, which I would much rather win the game than score 100 points in a game that I do win. If there's a chance that scoring 100 points will cost me to lose the game, 100 points is a pipe dream that we work towards, not a thing that we aim for. Right? That's not a healthy way to look at the game, and you will make yourself win many more games by just being like at least a little bit more respectful of that. Okay, game 5 was the semifinals. I played against Chris Stewart from, I want to say from, it's either KTT or KTC. I want to say it's KTC, but my apologies to Chris if it is not. This is one of, so he was playing Librarius plus Reclamation Force, so the Ultramarines version of kind of the same army I'm doing. Very much a durability skew army. He gets -1 if he's on objectives. I get +1 if he's on objectives. We're just basically nullifying each other's army rules. But he has another one, which is the +1 AP, and I don't have another one. So, very unfair. Very unfair of him to have that. The biggest problem in this game was that we played on Dawn of War, and I looked at his army, and he had started his 10-man Assault Terminator squad off the table. He had started his Fusilight Brick off the table because he has Ventress, and then his deployment is very. He has like his Stern Guard unit here, or sorry, his his Tigerius plus Blade Guard. He has his this is his Wardens with I don't want to say it's with Titus. I want to say it's just like Wardens with something. Then he has his company heroes, and then he has like a scout squad in here, and then a lancer here. And I just look at that and I'm like, you have no advance and shoot, you have no advance and charge, you have no ability to pressure me, and I'm going first. So I literally just went +2 move and attack moved everything directly forward as much as it could go reasonably. There's a Death and Night squad on this objective, a Death and Night squad on this objective. The land speeder goes up here, taps the objective, kills a scout squad with Oath a moment. My instructor companion squads walk onto here. Chris charges a JPI squad into this land speeder, almost kills it. He charges a JP squad into these scouts because that's all he can do, right? I'm applying enough pressure, I'm threatening to score points. And he has no prisoners and assassination. And then I heroic command instruct companion squads kill this, and I'm able to walk forward and charge these guys. This Death and Night squad walks forward and charges these guys. This Death and Night squad walks forward and charges these guys. He rapid ingresses in his Terminators on this side, so I switch to my squad shooting these guys. I drop it down to just Ventress. He heroics with his Terminators. I position myself in such a way that if he wants to get within an inch of me, if he heroics, he has to walk onto the varied objective. So his -1 comes online, mine +1 goes on. He doesn't flip the objective, so my +1's online, but his -1 isn't. And then I get to pop full wound rolls, and I killed 8 of his Terminators after he heroic. Now, obviously, if I had failed the battleship test or anything like that could have been messy, but I didn't, and he just died. And his entire army just got basically flatlined. He still had like some of this unit because I didn't kill it all, -1 to hit, and he interrupted here, and he still had like a couple Terminators and some JPIs. But so I scored out my points. We continue scoring out. But this is the semifinals of UKTC events are often very much once the game is over, you just stop. And Chris was like, I can just leave now. We've only been playing for an hour. I have a chance to, get home at a reasonable time. And so he decided to do that. And I don't blame him for that in the slightest. So I scored out my points. I drew my cards, and we stopped scoring Chris's out. So the score on VCP is 100 to 50 for this game, because I do think Chris would have scored a bunch of points. He definitely would have been able to get his expansion under control and things like that. But he wanted to go home, and I didn't draw out his cards for his purposes. But yeah, definitely a really, really messy game. You can kind of see the end state here. I think the Deathwing Night squad that was here rolled a 6-inch advance and moved 13 inches, then a 12-inch charge, and was able to charge these scouts and this unit. And I didn't kill Titus and the Wardens, but I did kill the Wardens, and I killed Ventress and most of the Assault Terminators here. He's still got his unit here. He's still got this. He's obviously still got his Fusilight Brick in reserve and a bunch of other stuff. So I definitely wasn't in like a, hey, this is just an over game from a scoring perspective. He was definitely going to keep scoring. But yeah, the armies that don't have any ability to pressure into you are super vulnerable to just getting attack moved by this kind of stat check. Like I was literally just able to walk forward, press W, and charge him everywhere in his army and kill it all, especially because he hadn't had much time to get CP under him. And because I'm priority assets, if he doesn't come at me, he doesn't score any points. So, and he's taken over, he has to get on the objectives. So if he hadn't come forward, I would have scored 100 points, and he might have tabled me at some point, but I would have scored 100 points before he did, which makes it really, really challenging for Chris. And as I understand it, he'd been doing more or less exactly the same thing to his 5 opponents up till this point. I think he had scored, high 90s in basically all of his games. The Fusilight Brick with Deep Strike was nightmare fuel for some armies. So yeah, very, very interesting until it wasn't game from my perspective. But I know that I certainly wouldn't be. I would certainly understand if Chris found this one a frustrating game. Then we had the finals where I played against Blair Wilson. The other finals game was my apologies. Invasion Fleet Tyranids versus Kroot Horde, Kroot Hunting Pack as Taken Hold. I really wanted to play against one of those two armies. I thought that would have been a ton of fun. The Azrael squad has so much shooting and so much ability to carve through those units that I thought it would have been great. I would have really enjoyed that. But instead, I got Blair on his Plague Legion Warptide. Now, Blair was on a perfect 600 up to this point. He had scored 100 points in every single one of his games. I was on 599. So, obviously I was like, oh, Blair doing better than me. He's doing a great job. And this army is a menace. If you've not played against Plague Legion Warptide recently, um, Warptide adds so much dimensionality to Plague Legion in terms of giving it like a heal stratagem for Plague Bearers, in terms of giving it advance and charge for Plague Bearers, which means the sloppy Ball Piper is much easier to get into position. There's just so much going on for this army and so much ability for it to apply a bunch of pressure, like Rotigus plus Green Clean One stack a bunch of debuffs. He was playing Epidemius. He was playing a two-man Beast and Nurgle squad. Just a lot of beef. Unfortunately, beef is challenging into the army of everything is +1 to wound if you touch an objective when he has to touch objectives because he's taken hold. So how did this game play out? Well, this game was certainly much more challenging, and you'll kind of see that by one of the things you can kind of tell with the way that this army is playing is that if you see me panic score a bunch of secondaries, I'm definitely not feeling comfortable in the game, and you can see that on this turn, right? I take a 3-3-4-5 turn because I'm just like I'm not getting secondaries under me. I need to make sure I'm doing that. Like I noticed that Blair had missed a couple of secondaries, and I felt like if I just take these now, I've got a very real chance of running ahead of him because he's just missed. Like he took a 2-3 and then has missed a bunch. So what happens this game? Blair goes first and is able, and I have a scout squad here. I have my entire army walled up. I have my inner circles sort of ready to stage into this spot because I don't feel like my expansion is going to be under much pressure once he's on the table. I just don't think Rotigus is very good at like flipping it off me, and I can keep a screen up in front of it with like the scouts or the land speeder or the ATV or whatever. Right? I can keep my backfield reasonably screened. He's only got the one squad of flesh hounds, and he's got Rotigus and a beast in reserve. Nothing too strenuous. Blair pushes a Nurgle screen at me. He charges his beast of Nurgle into my scouts. They don't kill them, which is nice. That was definitely handy from my perspective. But I'm able to charge that with Deathwing Knights, use the full wound drills and kill them, and then I shoot these Nurglings to death and just kind of stage onto the middle objective and deny him his taken hold. I get my do the action with my ATV on this side, and I start setting up to score my cards. I get 5 on Secure No Man's Land because I hold my two objectives, and I get a 5 on Burden of Trust because I start setting up with these three. Blair pushes his sloppy ball piper unit into the middle of me, and I take a bunch of battle shocks, and my combi lieutenant goes down, which was definitely really nasty. He also battle shocked like an inner companion, one of the Azrael squad. Deathwing Knights don't fail though. I'm able to keep control of the objective. The Deathwing Knights eviscerate the sloppy ball piper squad in combat. I AOC and then just kill him, which was really nice. I just took like basically no damage from his combat. And then I like chip damage the skull cannon with the land speeder and these Deathwing Knights position. He then pushes his skull cannon up, takes some shots at the Death Knights, doesn't kill them. I'm able to then walk forward and charge it. My inner circles have staged to here. He walks his Grand Clean onto the objective, so I just decided I'm never going to really try to take this objective off him, but I'm going to go for the middle. So my unit that had gotten charged in the middle by the sloppy ball piper advanced and charged over. I oafed the Epidemius unit, and his Grand Clean was on the objective, but the unit was not. So I was able to force him to heroic with that, and I was unfortunately not able to kill the full Epidemius unit. Obviously, being toughness 6 next to the being toughness 6 next to the Grand Clean one meant that the Deathwing Knight damage was just not as reliable. He wasn't on the objective, so I could only go to 4-0-1s instead of being able to be 3-0-1s if he was on the objective, and he obviously didn't consolidate onto it. And then the Grand Clean one did kill at least, I think he killed 2 Deathwing Knights in combat, which meant I got the objective denied off me. Otherwise, I would have been able to deny him primary that turn, which would have been really nice. Didn't quite work out that way. He was able to get the hold on it, but it did lock the Great and Clean one on that objective for turn, which meant the next turn, Stormguard Brick walked out and one-tapped him. Which was very funny. Actually, sorry, that's not exactly what happened. His Great and Clean one ends up on this objective. That's the end game score, end game position. So at the end of my turn 2, so he had pushed into me. My inner circle companion squad is like in here. He has a Great and Clean one here that comes down and charges the scouts and piles into the inner circle companions. His other Great and Clean one is here, and Rotigus is in reserve. My Deathwing Knight squad has charged here. He drops in his Beast of Nurgle and Rotigus here. They both throw charges to the Deathwing Knights and both hit them. But that was the next turn. So they're both currently still in reserve. So my Death Knight squad charges up to there, and then my Death Knight squad is charging to here. With these two units here, I'm able to walk my Stern Guard unit down the way and light this guy on fire. He just explodes because this is the +1 AP one. And then the 18-inch Lone Up one is in the middle. That one, I walk forward and I shoot it with Azrael with +1 to wound because he's on the Vard objective. And then I charge him with Azrael and I kill him without Oath of Moment because that unit in combat has close to 100 attacks with +1 to wound and lethal sustained. And I think Blair definitely underestimated that because I just picked up both great and clean ones like fairly trivially in the same turn and put him kind of into desperation mode, where he now had like his one squad of guys which had to come up and charge the Deathwing Knights that were still up here. I still had like a couple guys left, and the Astral squad he came up to charge them, and then he charged Rodriguez into these Deathwing Knights. Didn't kill them at all because Rodriguez is psychic in combat, and then they were able to pick up and go back in reserve, drop down here, and kind of be ready to do some stuff. And then Rodriguez like walked into the middle, charged into this unit, and the Astral squad died, but the Sternguard Brick was still alive. Sternguard Brick then killed Rodriguez, and I was able to kind of clean up from there. Now Blair was still able to score all of his primary because he actually was able to hold my home objective at the end of the game. I missed this one when we were scoring at the game. We originally had this as like 98 to 70 something, but when I went back through the game, I was like, oh, actually no, you would have been holding my home objective at the end, so he would have gotten 13 because I just like jumped off it because I was winning the game. So this game ended up being like pretty comfortably a win from my side. Because I like eventually got like my Death Knight squad into his backfield and held, did some actions back here. The squad that teleported like 6-inch deep truck in here, and just started doing some secondaries. And I was able to get, like my was able to get like my beacon, my display of might, and all that kind of stuff, and my plunder in the end game, and just score 100 points or score 98 points. But yeah, you can definitely see that one turn of like, let's just make sure that this doesn't go badly. I've just killed my third great and clean one. He's not really dropping a bunch of stuff. I'm like, if I can just score all my points at this point, it's going to be fine. But yeah, the consistent and repetitive battle shocking from Plague Legion was definitely really, really nasty. It definitely put me in a really tough position of, if my units ever do fail those battle shocks, it does become quite challenging. But I was able to kind of just keep two things near my objectives, or two things on my objectives, so that the point click shadow chaos one I'm reasonably likely to pass, and I passed a couple of pretty crucial ones on particularly the inner circles. I did also make a note of, whenever I could, of walking my units, keeping them in my deployment zone so they weren't in shadow chaos, because this is a 6 objective map. It was quite easy for him to hold 3 and get that shadow. So I was definitely quite conscious of like, if I could flip his middle off him, he wouldn't be able to shadow me in my command phase and his command phase to deny me points and get his hold mores. So that became quite important to just like make sure I did that. But he was often having to use the battle shock to make sure he got his whole 3 at the end of his primary. But yeah, his army is definitely not as good at getting secondaries. My unit, the army, doesn't give up a ton of kills and is quite durable, which does make it challenging for him. So yeah, that was kind of the gist of this game. Definitely a game that would be a lot tougher if Fusilight was not the war crime that it was at this point in time. So I would definitely like to see what this game looked like. Although I do think my version with the Landspeeder Vengeances and the Lion feels pretty solid as well, the new Company of Hunters builds. So yeah, you can kind of see like some of the end game state. These are all dead. My Landspeeder gets, this is my home objective. My Landspeeder's back here. My Landspeeder's up here. We're just kind of prodding. We've got the ATV holding my expansion. And then just like this brawled down combat in the middle with the Sternguard. Like the first time they left my deployment zone, my Deathwing Knights are back here. His Fleshhounds pick up, drop my home objective, and I'm able to just kind of like walk onto his home and, do all my cards and stuff like that back there, which was, yeah, pretty nice. And then I dropped Epidemius and shooting with the 2 Landspeeders to get my display of might with my 3 units in No Man's Land to his 2, which, yeah, can't complain at all. Very, very happy with that. And then, to everyone's genuine joy, the Englishman who made top 4, Ross Tully, obviously very, 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 very strong player, top 10 in the ITC right now, playing his Crew Hunting pack, basically only plays Crew Hunting pack, where his only tile model is Dark Strider, did go down to the Norns, which then meant that I was able to win the event on strength of schedule. I am going to need to get some time coming to terms with strength of schedule being the tiebreaker. I do always hate it feeling like it's something out of your control. Obviously, I appreciate that point scoring is not something that's in your control either, right? If you play tougher games than your opponent, you should be rewarded for that in some way, right? Like in the battle point system, it's very much, especially with the uneven primary scoring now, battle points is kind of a terrible system, right? Well, my army generates 20 nils, and my army generates 100-point games, and mine doesn't. But mine wins just the same rate, right? Feels like it's a thing that, because of the asymmetric primary now, we're not all playing the same game. It is challenging to say the point scoring should be the way that we do tiebreakers in tournaments now. But strength of schedule is always going to feel a little weird because it does create like this impromptu team tournament feel where I'm suddenly quite incentivized to like, egging on my players and all that kind of stuff, and like keeping an eye on who's doing well. But what I do like is it does make me be like, God, I hope I play against the best player at the room so that I know that they'll go 4-1 or 5-0 or whatever, and then I can have the highest strength of schedule, right? That is a thing that I do like, that it is incentivized, because it gets you away from that feeling of like, well, I just want to dodge this XYZ guy, right? I was definitely going into that last round being like, I would like to play against Ross because he has the highest strength of schedule. I want to play against him and beat him so that I have the highest chance of winning because my strength of schedule will be higher, rather than playing against, any of the other ones because they didn't have as high a strength of schedule. So I do like like it from that perspective of it makes me want to play tougher games instead of being like, I want a bunny run where I can guaranteed score 100 points, right? That feels bad. I don't like playing that kind of game. Outside of like the abstract of winning games is cool. So yeah, it's nice to have an incentive towards playing the tougher, to wanting to play the tougher games. Now, obviously, we should all want to play the tougher games from a development standpoint, but I worry less about development nowadays. I want the points. Let's do some closing thoughts. First of all, priority assets is just an incredible, incredible mission set at making your opponent come to you. If you don't have a lot of reach in your army and you're thinking, how can I make my opponent come to me? I've definitely been looking at this from like a death guard, from a world eater's perspective of like, can they build a priority assets game plan that makes your opponent come to you and makes them engage with you on your terms so that you can just run the score up? And I do think that there is some good options to do that in other armies. And Dark Angels with basically no speed outside of like movement 7, advance and charge, and a couple land speeders being functional was super awesome. And I think priority assets giving you the agency to do that is really cool. It does feel like it's a little too easy to score occasionally. But if you can build a Protestant army that is okay with getting rushed, you can do some incredible things right now. The second thing that I want to pull out is the durability is really, really annoying to deal with. If a unit is just like durable enough that it requires multiple commitments, especially into hidden, where you can set up counter punches, but also in a way that protects objectives with heroic intervention, it can be really, really challenging. It's a lot like playing against Wrath of the Rock Last Edition, where if you miss, you might as well not have tried because they're going to 6-inch heroic you and just kill you. And the new heroic stratagem opens that up as an option for basically every army in the game, which I think is really, really interesting from the perspective of the durability while being as challenging as ever in the world of Defilers and Twin Lance and all these insane damage output units and orcs to be just as a faction is definitely really, really interesting. And I am not in love with that conceptually, right? Like the idea that you need to go really, really high up on damage because the durability keeps getting higher is interesting. I don't know if I have a point to this or if I'm just kind of talking, but durability. Look for units that can survive getting interacted with by one thing that can maintain hidden and protect objectives with good OC or good durability. Those feel like very, very impactful. Deathwing Knights were phenomenal all tournament, and I'm playing them in Company of Hunters now, playing the Lion, right? All these units that are just like, if you don't kill them, you're so screwed because you had to get close to them in order to shoot them now because of hidden or lone operative. Librarius definitely needed the nerf. Fusillade was crazy all weekend. I don't think it ever like meaningfully died. I think it killed significantly more than its points value every game, and I was definitely playing through it a lot. And I don't think it's the only thing in that space that you can play through. But Fusillade was insane and needed to change, and Librarius is still good after the change, which I think is enough for me to be like, man, I'm so glad it's gone. Point scoring on the whole is too easy this edition. I think that all of the primaries in general, with the exception of Disruption, are too easy to score points with. Priority assets, I didn't drop a point of primary all weekend, and I don't think it was close in any of my games. I think I was consistently banning 60 if I had wanted to in most of my games, at least 50. And with the reduction on the primary cap from 50 to 45, I do think that is worrying. I think that on average, most of the missions should be giving less points. I think most conditions that give 3 for a kill should be 2. I think most that give 4 for an action should be 3. And I think that there's just a lot. I feel like it should be harder to hit 45 primary and that you shouldn't do it consistently. I don't think the clean way to do that is like changing primary caps. Like I think you could change the primary cap to 12 points of turns with that, so you have to engage on 4 turns, not 3. But I don't think that removes the problem. I think that just like hides it because it's still just way too easy to score points in the end game. The number of games I had where my opponent was getting held down on primary pretty successfully for the first 3 turns or for the first 2 turns, but was able to just go like 10, 10, 15, or that my opponent did it to me and I was still able to go like 15, 15, 10 on the last 3 turns and max my primary anyway was kind of insane and kind of insulting. It felt like denying primary was just kind of pointless unless you were also tabling your opponent. And also the same thing with secondary cards. Being able to hold your secondary cards to infinity made it way too easy to get secondaries. Like if I go through like the 7 games I played, how many primary I scored? What in this game it was the last 3 turns. I got 43 on secondaries, and I scored 10 in the first 2 turns. I got 33 in the last 3. In this game, I scored 10 in the first 2 turns and 35 in the last 3. In this game, I scored 20. I got max. I got 50 secondary this game. In this game, I got pretty consistently. This is the same game, so that'll be why. In this game, I got 12 in the first turns and then 32 in the back 3. In this game, I got 15 in the first 2 and then 30 in the back 3. In this game, I got 15 and then 30. It's very, very, very easy to score your cards, right? In this game, a 14 point and then max out. And in the last game, 8 points and then max out, right? Like 8 points in the first 2 turns, 37 in the back 3 is just crazy. It should not be this easy to score secondaries. I think holding more than I honestly don't think you should be able to hold more than 2 cards into the next turn. If you have 4, discard down to 2 or something to that effect. I don't know if that's exactly works out with game design. The end of your opponent's turn scoring ones do make that a little more challenging, but you could probably reward it in a way that's like at the start of your turn, discard down to 2 cards, then draw 2 new cards or something like that, right? Like so it's at the start of your turn, not the end of your turn. It doesn't matter how you do it, but I do think that there needs to be like some form of curtailing on like maximum primary output last turns. Maximum output, maximum secondary output, right? Especially with like the end game scoring and stuff like that as well, which doesn't count towards battle rounds. Last one, Scottish Warhammer. Oh man, I love Scottish Warhammer. I am having such a good time right now. You guys are amazing, and I was so happy to see 200 and odd plus player event in Scotland. I know that Doonhammer is coming up in September. That's a golden ticket event as well. So there's going to be like at least 5 or 6 people from Scotland playing with golden tickets at WCW this year, which is awesome. That's just something that we've never had before. The first year that I went out, we had myself and Brian. The second year, I don't believe there was anybody from Scotland. Last year, it was just me. So this year, I think if we'll have 4 or 5 people, maybe 6, 7, 8 people, if a couple of people can seize a ticket from down south or team event or whatever, we might have a full Scottish contingent at WCW, which is going to be amazing. Scottish Warhammer has never felt so good. Seeing events like Battle for Green Hollow, Doonhammer, Celtic Cup, obviously this one, the team events that we're running, and all that kind of stuff just explode in popularity and be just as challenging as any event down south, right? This was as challenging a tournament as any that I've ever played in England, and that is awesome, and not something that I think I would have been able to say a couple of years ago. So absolute amazing steps from Scotland to just develop themselves to run a runner. Massive shout out to the rest of the top 8 for Edinburgh. I will shout out them and their armies because I think that's a cool thing to do. Just because it's Scottish Warhammer. Let's take a look. So we had, and by the way, shout out to Taken Hold. Myself on Priority Assets, Dark Angels. We had Lewis Davey from Vaulthammer on Tyranids Taken Hold, who finished second. Congratulations to Lewis, and he did win the golden ticket. It'd be great to see you out there. We had Blair Wilson from Crossfire on Chaos Demons Taken Hold, and Ross Tully from Vanguard Tactics on Tower Empire Taken Hold. Then we had Scott McCutcheon from StatCheck, and he was playing Space Marine Priority Assets, the only other Priority Assets in the Top Cut, and the only other non-Taken Hold. Then we had Chris Stewart from Kilmarnock Tabletop Collective, so it was KTC. My apologies for potentially saying KTT earlier. On Space Marines Taken Hold, this was the Librarius. Then we had Paul Martin on Dead Red Gaming on Orcs Taken Hold, and then Ewan Devlin on from Aberdemons on Necrons Taken Hold. Shout out to Ewan, by the way. He did kill 2 Team Scotland players in rounds 3 and 4. He killed Ryan on Tau, and also Sam, who's our team mom in round 4 with his Necrons. He also played Johnny O'Neill, who's a really strong Space Marine player who was one of the high scorers at the Scottish Club Team Championship a couple of months ago. Yeah, and then also a big shout out to Connor Leach, who is one of the Team Scotland Academy guys from Forth Valley, who went 5-0 on Imperial Knights Persival, but did have to leave before the top cut. He was the only player on not Prio or Taken Hold to go 5-0, and he did beat Carl Grundy in round 5. So massive shout out to him for going first 5 times to Gate Warden Lance. What an absolute hero! Just genuinely like incredible results. Watching him every round, just walking around after 20 minutes with Gate Warden Lance was very funny. I think that's all I have for you guys today. Massive thanks to everybody who watched. If you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more of it, remember to check out youtube.com/statcheck. If you want to work with me specifically about anything that we've spoken about today or anything, kind of in the future, you want to do some of these style of game recaps, you can check out stat-check.com/coaching or drop us an email at coaching@stat-check.com. I hope everybody's had a wonderful day. Best of luck at any tournament you're attending, and I will catch you all next time.